you. Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice. It's very nice to meet you, and thanks so much for having me.
And just so you know, Annamie, Morgan um, moved. I always say it because I just take so much pride of that. She moved to become the director of care in a nursing home in the midst of this pandemic. That takes courage.
It really does.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really, really does.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that I did because I really enjoy it.
I know you do,
Yes,
but
but
still takes
even so,
courage.
I come from a long line of women who worked in long-term care. No big surprise, given that, you know, I'm a Black woman, this family comes from the Caribbean. And they all love the work and really consider it to be a vocation. But I really know that it's hard work, you know, it's still really challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are so many issues when you mention these issues. Maybe what we can do is to focus on something that is of huge importance to us and that we want to see how you can help us.
Okay.
Because if not, we think that it will be a gone opportunity yet again in nursing homes. And it's the issue of national standards. Also the issue of enshrining in legislation in Ontario, which we spoke with Mike Schreiner, of course, and others. The need to enshrine in legislation in Ontario the issue of the 4 hours with the skill mix that the commissioner provided, which, by the way, are the same skill mix that RNAO provided already years ago in report after report, and we can send you. But we don't get the feeling that the Prime Minister is real about moving the issue of national standards forward for whatever reason, whether it is because it's a big potato to fight with the provinces or whether it is because it was the good thing to see on the moment and not now. I really don't want to and don't care to speculate. What we do know is that if you guys and if the NDP and if others will put it, we can expect that from O'Toole, but if you and the NDP can put it and maybe even coalesce and put it as an election piece or put it out there together, not that it will pass, because you know, if the liberals and O'Toole then says no, then it will not pass. But it needs to be in someone's history song sheet that this needs to happen. Otherwise, the almost 4,000 deaths that we had in Ontario and way more in the country will be all for nothing. For nothing. It's a tragedy of mega proportions when you look worldwide and what happened in a country as rich as ours and a province as rich as ours. And Quebec was not better, right? So if you can comment on that first piece on what's doable and how can we work with you on that, that would be awesome.
Well, you know, there is a consensus amongst the base. First, hello everyone. Very nice to be with you.
Yes.
Thank you for having me today. I'm here in Toronto on the traditional territories of the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee. And then just my personal anecdote. This is my second event today for nurses, and I was saying in the first event.
I saw that.
Yes, it was just great. That my grandma, she was grandma to me, but she was nurse to everyone else because she was the head nurse on the island, the tiny island of 10,000 that she came from, and she was also the midwife. So there was a period of time where
she was the chief nurse.
She was the chief nurse, exactly.
The chief, wow.
Yeah. It was really her. There was nothing. I was trying to find the photo to share with you because there's this iconic photo in our family of my grandma in her nurse's uniform with the cap, and she was so proud. It really was who she was, you know. And so in the community, she was just known as nurse, which I'm guessing maybe some of you probably are too, you know. But anyway. So for me, today is the day to think about her. She passed away about 8 years ago. So it's anyways. But yes. So thank you for everything that you do. And I had an insight growing up with my grandma about the work. And you know, as much as it's a vocation, it's also just incredibly challenging work, physically, mentally, So thank you. Thank you for all that you do. In terms of the question, there is a consensus amongst the base of our party, the Liberal Party, and the NDP on the need to reform long-term care and the need for national standards. At the conventions that were held recently by the Liberals and the NDP, they passed resolutions which were almost identical in wording about this. And we already have.
Would you mind sending us that? I haven't seen them. It would be awesome.
Yes, no, yes. And it just struck me that if we want to do this, we could, Doris, because certainly between, I'm very aware that we're the smallest of the three, but between the three of us, we could keep this session of Parliament going long enough to actually put this in place if we wanted to. And it's very clear from our membership that that's what they want as well. There is a very fresh mandate that we all have from our members to make this happen for the reasons that you said. So we have already called for these things publicly. We've written to the minister. We have supported petitions. We have launched campaigns about this too, about campaigns on social media. So it is very much for us a priority. And I can already tell you and commit to you that certainly long-term care reform, the need for standards is going to be one of the key issues that we include in our platform whenever the next election is had. But that being said, I think someone's unmuted. A couple of people, I think. That being said, there is still 2.5 years left in the life of this Parliament. That is a long time to do a lot of good work if you are willing to work together in collaboration and cooperation. And because there really is quite a lot of overlap on some of these issues, and this one is one example, that to me would be the ideal scenario. I mean, if we really are there for the people and it's not about getting more power for our parties, then we should be working together to deliver on some of these things within the life of this Parliament, and not taking a risk with an election and having to start all over again afterward.
That's fantastic. So maybe we can connect in relationship. I'm looking at Matt. Matt, maybe we can connect. I would say the NDP, we should invite all of them. And then whoever joins to do a joint a joint call to, I mean, the government has the prerogative to do that, right? But if you are saying we can put the 3 resolutions of the 3 parties, then we can put what's holding us, right?
Yeah.
What's holding us back.
Absolutely. And that is really a role that associations like yours can play, because we always extend the invitation, it's really an open invitation. We don't consider this to be a partisan issue.
Yeah.
And so we extend it, but as soon as we do, it becomes partisan. But something that civil society can do, which is very useful and could be a very powerful tool, is you can extend that invitation. I know that if we received an invitation to a joint event, we would definitely participate in that. And I think that the other parties would as well. Everyone wants to show up for nurses, absolutely. So certainly that's something that you can do. And I always encourage civil society groups to do that. If you feel like there should be more coordination or cooperation on a theme or a topic or a policy to get it actually moving, and you feel like it's not happening organically, then you can certainly help to convene. And that's something that would be very useful. So yes, I think that's a great idea, and we'd certainly accept.
Thank you. And we wanted also to talk about the national opioid crisis. I know it's an issue also dear to your heart, and I know my colleagues, Dania and Sue, I think also, I don't know how much Sue is involved with that, but Dania, you are involved with that, right? So if you can tell us first where you are, Annamie, with that, and then maybe Dania, you can share what has happened during the pandemic, the difficulties that the field has encountered with that, because the situation is way worse than what it was.
Yeah.
It is actually. Hi, everybody. I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole hour. I need to step out at 2:30, so just taking that chance. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity to listen in. It is worse. It is worse than it's ever been. Just this past weekend, we heard that there was a handful of people who succumbed to the opioid crisis again. And for our teams that provide services, in the community, on the streets, in the shelters, etc., it's almost a weekly occurrence. And a couple of weeks ago, actually, a former client who had become a peer support worker for many, many, many years, and he was known by the community, by the sector, got stabbed, fatally stabbed, and it just created a big ripple effect in that addictions work community. It was done by someone who was unstable and who that person unfortunately happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. It happened in bright daylight around 10 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. And still right now that triggered our response to provide some debrief, traumatic informed debrief sessions for our staff, because just like, ICU nurses and other essential workers see what's happening on the front line in those environments, and NER for us in the community, it's the struggle is real. And it affects us on a personal level because it's just cumulative. That's the nature of the beast, unfortunately, but they need our support and our services. So what can be done for the remainder of this term, actually, to really nip at this in a tangible way?
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I'm very sorry to hear about those losses. I am running to represent Toronto Centre. Those of you who are from Toronto will know that it is really the epicenter of the poisonings related to the toxic supply, and you're absolutely correct that the numbers have skyrocketed. In Toronto, the numbers the number of opioid-related deaths in Toronto doubled, and they continue. I mean, we haven't seen the peak yet, and it's not just here. Also, we've had record numbers of deaths in Alberta as well, and in British Columbia as well, where I think they estimate there are between 5 to 7 deaths per day at this point. So it really is. It was an epidemic before, and the pandemic. This terrible perfect storm of conditions about limited supply, isolation, people using on their own, more difficulty in accessing safe injection sites. All of these, there are other factors as well. They've all come together really to exacerbate a pre-existing crisis. And so we called for we've been calling for decriminalization for many years, but we also called for the creation of a national safe supply program. And when we say safe supply program, we're talking about drugs of choice. We're not talking about just the substitutes to people's drugs of choice, because we understand that's insufficient. And this is what they're within the medical community, I have to say, or the health community. There is a tremendous consensus around many of these issues. Whenever we're speaking to people, wherever in the country, they make clear what needs to be done. And in this case, this is what they have said would make the biggest difference. It's the reason why the BC government, as well as the chief coroner, all support have asked formally for BC to be exempted from the provisions of the Controlled Substances Act that make illicit drugs illegal, so that the supply can be decriminalized. But the other part is important too, because decriminalization without ensuring that the supply is not toxic is simply not enough. It really is an essential piece. So for the moment, we remain the only party to call for both of those things. But again, it is not a partisan thing. And so we always invite the other parties to join us in that call. We wanted to see this done by Canada Day. The legislation that was recently proposed by the government, it reduced penalties for possession, but it didn't go as far as decriminalizing. And that's really what we need to first to remove the stigma, begin to remove the stigma, and then we need to move as quickly as possible towards a safe supply program. So, you know, there's nothing left now but the will to do it. I actually think, and not just think, but we can see from the studies that have been done, from the focus groups, from the surveys, that people in Canada are coming around very quickly to this. And I do believe that if all parties said this again with one voice and explained the public health reasons that this was necessary, that people in Canada would not resist this in general at this point, because every community has been touched. And this is something that that people have seen, you know, ravage their communities, and they want to change. Maybe the last thing that I'll mention about this, of course, as with many things during the pandemic, communities of color, low-income communities, the queer community have been particularly impacted. I hear the stories in the meetings about, you know, I just met the other day with a number of agencies that work with the people living with HIV and AIDS. I've, you know, met with a number of organizations in Toronto Centre who have all pointed out the intersection between the opioid related deaths and the pandemic, whether it's again the lost housing or lost access to your counselor, lost access to the community supports that were helping you keep going. There has been a significant spike amongst the queer community in death, and also in communities of color as well. So, you know, we stand at the ready to work with anyone who wants to support us in this. This is again another issue that we will continue to advocate on. We launched a campaign online. We launched a letter writing campaign as well about this. We have called, we have written, we have petitioned, we have called for emergency debate. So it's something that we're really committed to doing all we can in any case to see action on.
So we will follow up on that. That's very good. That's very good. I just want to tell you that we have many members actually that joined. Can I ask that you guys put your cameras on? So Annamie has the pleasure to see you. Or do you need to promote them to panelists? Just let everybody, Anne-Marie, please. I think
it's okay if people are, you know, in their pajamas or they have their hair in rollers. It's okay.
No, those
you know,
sometimes we only leave panelists, and I want to make sure everybody. I see one of my hobbies. She's not a hobby. I have one hobby, but I have many hobbies in nursing because there is an award called the HUB Award. I see Sue Ferber. So I know, Sue, that you're probably very, very interested to talk about your passion and your personal and professional advocacy on Lyme's disease. If I can give you just 2-3 minutes, just so we give everybody a chance, because that was not on the agenda, but I see you and I want to recognize that your work has been tremendous. If you want to share a bit very briefly.
Thank you, Doris. Hi, Annamie. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk with you and with the rest of the group. My passion is, I've been working with Lyme disease for the past 5 years. It's a growing problem all across Canada. And actually, in the US, they now have close to 500,000 new cases a year. And in Canada, the cases, I really believe it's being undercounted. The issue that I'm most interested in, I've actually met with, did a lot of federal work in, let's see, 2017 and 18 and 19. I spoke at the Health Committee on Lyme disease on the federal framework. But the issue that I'm really concerned about that needs attention is maternal fetal transmission of Lyme disease. And this is an area that actually the federal government has acknowledged in the past on federal websites. And for some reason, this acknowledgement was removed from 3 separate federal websites, whether it was adverse outcomes associated with Lyme in pregnancy or transmission of Lyme to a baby in pregnancy. And I really feel this is an area which needs to be addressed urgently. And so I have put a significant amount of my energy and focus into doing my best to bring these issues forward. But I'm wondering if this is something that, we can talk with you further about. I have met with Elizabeth May several times in Ottawa on Lyme disease and on this specific issue. I know that she was highly involved in Bill C-442 and something that she's very passionate about. So that's just a little bit about me, but just wondering if this is something that we can get your support on to get this issue moved forward and get the help to Canadian families that's deeply and desperately needed.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I was actually going to suggest that I connect you with Elizabeth. I'm not surprised that you are, but I would say that she will always know a million times more about this than me. She really is, in terms of from a policy perspective, one of Canada's leading experts. And so, if there are particular anything specific that can be done, if you have specific proposals or recommendations, then absolutely, please, if you're in direct contact with her and you don't need her help connecting, please go ahead and tell her, because as one of our MPs, she's really well positioned to be able to do that. And if not, please, absolutely, you can reach out to our office via Doris, and we'll make sure to make those connections. But Lyme disease absolutely is, it predates me, but certainly it's a cause that is very, very close to Elizabeth, and she's always looking for opportunities to be a champion. So did you say she was aware of this already?
I'm not sure if she's aware of this issue, the federal website changing, but she would know me, and I have met with her. But yeah, perhaps we can reconnect with her via you. That would be wonderful.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. She'll certainly, I will be surprised if she's not aware, but if she isn't, she will certainly want to know. And so yes, please, we can make that reconnection. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, you're on mute, Doris. The tradition continues.
Yes, I know. Well, that's a good sign. It means we haven't been COVID-sized completely.
There you go, exactly.
At the moment that we do it completely smooth, it means we have been COVID-sized completely.
I've never heard that expression before. It's a good one. COVID-sized?
COVID-sized, yes. We had a report last year that was ready to go, and COVID came on, and I said to my colleagues, we can't put the report this way, the ECHO report. We need to COVID-size the report. So here you go. I see Corsita. Corsita, I see Corsita. Is Corsita there?
Yes, I see Corsita's name.
Yes, Doris, Corsita is here.
Corsita, do you want to share about our awesome task force that you are co-chairing with Angela?
What task force?
Annamie will be inspired.
What task force?
What task force?
There are so many.
There are so many, yes. It would be my honor. I know you want me on video and all of that. Because
on video with your RNP.
I know. Okay. So I can't get the video to actually go on. Hold on a second. I can't see how to. Well, here it is. 1 second. Okay. Well, they're saying they can't detect my camera. 1 second. Let me just do that properly. Okay.
There's a nice photo of you up in any case.
Thank you. So, take off my mask. Or am I somewhere in here? I think right here, actually. There I am. Hi. Got mask face. So, I am Corsita, nurse practitioner, and I have the distinct honor and the pleasure of being a co-chair with Angela Cooper-Brathwaite for the RNAO Task Force Black Nurses. And it's very exciting, obviously, sort of came about through the trauma that we've been experiencing over the last year. But for us, it's been a trauma of systemic racism and experiences as Black nurses that we've had here in this country. So the impetus is for us to work with the RNAO. We have 15 other members besides myself and Angela, who are the co-chairs. We have 15 other nurses who are brilliant and consist of nursing students. We have the nurses who are practicing in various degrees in their areas. Seniority, we have just a wealth of knowledge and experiences. And so we bring that to this committee. One of the things that we are working towards is a report that we are trying to come up with the information that we need to be able to affect change. We have had some webinars every month. So far, we've had webinars. This month, webinar is actually on Monday, on the 17th of May, because, so this will be the last one for we'll take a summer break. But the webinars have been informative and instructive in terms of dealing with, our speakers have been talking about education systems. So for example, so at elementary school level, what are the needs, you know, the school board, how the school board is set up, some of the challenges that we experience with the way this system has been designed. We've had speakers talk about the way nursing has been structured in this country, the fact that, you know, Black nurses have traditionally not been allowed into academia, some of the struggles that we're having regarding the representation of nurses in positions of quote unquote of power, so in the decision-making places. So some of those, some of us are working towards trying to understand what that is like. Allyship, we've talked about, you know, what makes a good ally, the kinds of things that we can do to help support each other as we move forward. So the work is very exciting. It's right now for me, it's the major thing that I'm doing volunteer wise, and it gives me like such joy. Like it makes me want to wake up in the morning because I feel like I'm affecting change.
And they are, and Annamie,
Mhm.
I am part of it. I'm one of the allies. We are, but they are really, it's people are already making changes in their workplace. Like that, even can say they took the terms of reference and modify. People are, by the time we are done or they are done, it will revolutionize nursing, which is needed, urgently needed. Go for it, Corsita. I just got too excited too.
Yeah, so it's really exciting work, and it's an honor and a privilege, and I think we all feel that way. We know that the work is just beginning, and we know that it's going to take systemic changes. So it's not grassroots kind of thing. This is not something that you could make like a little committee and have someone working on it. We're talking about even like the trauma-informed experiences, because people often have us do the work. So they'll put you on a committee late at night on your free time and ask you to come to an in-service. And we find that absolutely disrespectful. And I had a conversation last night with a family member who was telling me, and she didn't even realize I was doing this work. And she was telling me that she's been forced now through her job to attend last night on her time at 8 o'clock. There, she's mandated to go through these modules and for her employer. And she's like, why do I need to go through this on my time? First of all, I don't need this work to be done, but they're forcing everyone to do it so that people can get it done. But the way that it's being done, she said, is going to cause friction in the workplace because people are being forced on their own time to do it, not employer paid time. So even the way that these things are coming down, it's part of the struggle is exactly that. there are changes, people are trying to make changes, but the changes are not, we're not listening to where it needs to happen, just checking a box. And I think that's the problem I'm having. Even the term BIPOC, what does that mean? I'm a Black person. I'm not a slogan, right? So there's hurt in different ways. And when people coin certain terms and they think it's great for us, if you can't say the word Black or Indigenous, then what's the point of finding a term that makes it okay to say? So those are the kinds of, those are some of the challenges, right, that we are working. And when you say it, people don't understand why it's painful, but clearly the person who came up with the term wasn't in a room with somebody who experiences the stuff. So I can say a lot more, but there's just a lot of things attached to each word and each term. It's just another thing we got to work through and explain why it's not an okay term. And then when you're explaining it, it means you're explaining it to the wrong person because they clearly have no idea or understanding about why that's even hurtful, right? Because it means you can't say me. If you can't call me Corsita, that's my name. That's what I'm asking you to call me. So to call me a term like BIPOC, to generalize everyone, you've now said that like we're all the same, right? Because now and we're all different. Every Black person has a different issue. Your issues are different than mine. Those are our committee members. We're all different people. Indigenous people have different issues, you know, so to just have a term and then we say this is okay for people. Yeah, so that's the work that we're doing, but I'm happy that we have a forum to do that. And I'm grateful for the RNAO. I'm grateful for Doris for always being, you know, a champion for us. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm grateful to you guys because we are all learning from you as we go along. I think what will be important for you and Annamie is wherever you go, I don't think you will see another group of health professionals so intent, knowledgeable, and passionate on really changing first inside our own mess. You know what I mean? Usually is, let's look at the system, let's look at this, let's look at that, but look at the mirror, we don't. And we were very clear that we want to fix our own mess inside the profession before. And it all started, just so you know, of course, it started with George Floyd. Not that we didn't have position statements and papers and things before we did, but some of us couldn't sleep. Even when now I think about George Floyd, I still have actually difficulty physically breathing. Like I internalize some of what we saw, right? What we saw happening. And the meeting was called for that. The meeting was called for what can we do? What can we do to actually be part of this movement of Black Lives Matter, given the monumental tragedy on top of ongoing tragedies that have happened, right? And we came to the meeting and many of us, and my president and I know because Morgan and I spoke after, we were like, we knew we have a problem with nursing cannabis. It's not that we didn't know. I have known it from my dissertation that I wrote about that and from being in management and in hospital and in clinical practice, both in this country and in the US and others. But to the extent that we heard and the hurt that we heard, the pain that we heard, we were, I think, imagine you were there too at that first meeting. We were shocked. We didn't know what to do. We were shocked. And I remember at night writing to a person saying, would you mind sharing this? Would you mind writing something, etc. And then I remember Morgan, and I said, Morgan, I'm going to ask, you know, Angela, because it's a natural. She's our immediate past president. She's gorgeous, she's Black, and she's outspoken. What else can you ask? And then we had two co-chairs, and then we let them run the show. But we selected people from across the province. That the process was very thoughtful. From across the province, only Black people that self-identify as Black. And of course, we got the usual, why only Black, why not also brown? And we said basically what we were told to say by our colleagues, because who am I to know? I really, You know what I mean? Probably if they had not told me, I would have said, yeah, why not, right? But it's because they're at the bottom at the bottom of the hierarchy. I think Black people and Indigenous people, right, are at the bottom of the hierarchy. And the rest is history, because they're leading us in a path that nursing will be changed forever. I'm convinced will be changed forever. Not just by the report that will come. By the time we come out of the report, that so much would have happened. And everybody now is doing this scholarship and that scholarship and this. Lovely. Let them do more. You know, it doesn't belong to us. You know, but if you, when you go around, can use as an example, the Black Nurses Task Force, don't call it RNAO, the Black Nurses Task Force, and what they're doing to look at inside the profession of nursing and not escaping from that opportunity, reality, threat, mandate that we need to have if we want to change other things in the future. First, let's clean our own problem. Fix our own problem. Just give it legs wherever you can. And if we can participate on things that you're doing, not only Corsita and Angela, but Dania is on that task force too. Dania, go high. And others, we can give you students. We have Ola is out of this world from York University. And you know what's happening at York. I hope you do. You know what's happening at York, Annamie?
Is there, maybe not, no.
Okay, I will send it to you. I will
Okay.
send it to you. I am deeply knowledgeable of it, not involved. I'm not involved, but I'm deeply knowledgeable by extension. My husband is involved. So he's a professor at York University, probably will turn to be the biggest case in the history of Canada. There was a petition that I sent to the task force. It already has over 40,000 signatures, the largest petition of, you know, those petitions that there are. All he's asking is a fair investigation. All that people that are involved in his case are asking is a fair, independent investigation. And I wouldn't be surprised if some people lose their jobs because of that, not him necessarily. They're threatening to fire him. In any case, it's an incredible situation, But in nursing, we see that every time, people that don't get the jobs, people that are not giving the interviews, you name it. So we are intended in fixing our problem. Once we fix our problem within our own profession, then we can talk about discrimination and racism in the workplace or in the health system or whatever, which we know it exists, right? So leverage on us, call on us, have speakers if you need for other professional groups, especially when you will talk likely with kids in schools. I'm sure they invite you a lot because, you know.
Yes.
Of course. So you can bring, if some of them want to be nurses and they want to know that they have a place in nursing, regardless of which color of skin they wear. You know what I mean? And of which social class they come from, and of which sexual identity or whatever, call on us. We have also LGBTQ2 group that is fantastic, a best practice guideline coming from them. Call on us because I think as RNAO we're quite something in opening the window to see what's going on. Yeah.
Well, I will definitely thank you very much for that. And Rosita, it's very nice to meet you. I will certainly make use of that resource, absolutely. And as I said at the beginning, I grew up hearing some of these stories directly from my grandmother. And my mom has shared more, you know, over the last while, especially during the pandemic. I've been asking her for more stories, the kind of things that, you know, they didn't want to tell me when I was a child because they didn't want me to worry. just about the kind of conditions that my grandmother often had to go to work under, and she was never able to fully reclaim her profession here in Canada. That's actually something we spoke about earlier today. You know, none of her credentials were recognized. The decades of work that she had done, none of that was recognized. She would have had to start from scratch, and she was in her 50s, so she became a nurse's aide instead. And the stories my mother has been telling me about that experience and the discrimination, just the very difficult conditions that she had to work under, the literally backbreaking. This is one of the things that my mom shared with me, that my grandmother had been injured lifting a patient out of bed, and really, I guess I don't know if it was a hernia or what happened, but really damaged her back quite badly. And there was no paid sick leave. And there was no choice but to continue working. And she worked that way for I think 2 or 3 years, my mom said, under a lot of pain. So yes, it's important it's great to know that there is this work happening. I told the nurses I spoke to earlier today how incredibly important I think it is for there to be more nurses, nurse practitioners, healthcare professionals in general that get involved in politics. And
are you looking?
Of course, absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
You send a note to us and we will find you, because we actually have a lot of RNs and NPs now getting involved.
Good. And I said to them, look, you know, I always end by saying, first I make the pitch for our party, but then I say, look, even if it isn't ours, even if your political affiliation is elsewhere, it's a time for you to get involved, because it's one thing to be consulted about the decisions that other people have made for you. It's another thing to make those decisions, to be the decision maker. And what I want to see are more of you in those roles of decision making from the outset. It would produce much better public policy. There's no question about that. And by better public policy, I mean policy that more closely corresponds to the needs of the people that the policies have been designed for, and therefore are more sustainable, and have a better chance of continuing on. And so, given your knowledge, your experience, given the empathy, given your role within the community, politics would be so much better. Not just in terms of the content of policy, but also in terms of the culture of politics as well. I believe if there were more of you who took the leap, and it is a leap. And I will not lie to any of you and say that it's all fun. A lot of it is not. But Crosita, just as you said, the work that you can do, the impact that you can have, does make it worthwhile, at least to me. When you actually get to see an idea go all the way to the end and know that it's going to directly impact people's lives in a positive way, it helps to make up for a lot of the rest. And as I said, the culture will change if good people committed to being involved in politics for the right reasons, become a critical mass of politicians, then it will change the culture and the dynamics as well, and become a positive feedback loop. So I hope some of you will consider it. We have a campaign called Time to Run, which is all about identifying the leaders that are out there that really should be
thinking. I need to tape that. Wait, I'm going to tape that so I can tweet it. Just okay. I absolutely need to tape about the campaign. There is Irmajin. We need you not to type anymore because you keep showing up on the typing. Okay, you go for it.
Oh, you want me to announce it? Yes, this is okay. So this is my call out to all of the nurses, the nurse practitioners who are out there and who should see their place in politics, who are leaders in their community, who are doing the work day in, day out of identifying the needs and then helping to meet the needs, who maybe have not seen how that leadership might translate into politics, but should, because it is exactly the kind of people that we need in politics. my message to you today is that it is time to run. It's time to run so that we can have the policies that we need. We can have the legislation that we need. We can have people better protected. We can have your perspective and your leadership. That is really what is needed at this moment to take advantage of the opportunities that we have and to address the challenges that we face. So my message to all of you.
Go to all parties.
To all parties, yes, exactly. Whether it is ours or another, it is time to run. And I will take it even further and say that if anyone says to me, look, Annamie, you know, bless you, but I'm just not agreeing. I'm a liberal, I'm an NDP, whatever it is, but I still want to get involved. I'm still interested. I just don't know how. You can still contact me in our office, and we will make those connections. We know people in all of the parties. We don't consider them to be the devil, and we just want, we want to have, the perspective that you bring. So I am very happy to facilitate that.
That's
okay.
Awesome. That's
yeah.
Awesome.
What other questions do you have for me?
That's awesome. Awesome. I'm going to tweet this. Fantastic. That's awesome.
You are really an extraordinary tweeter, Doris. I mean, I feel like sometimes the event hasn't even happened and somehow you have already tweeted about it, that somehow you have imagined it in your mind already and communicated it to the public. It's extraordinary. I really respect that. And yes, go ahead and tweet about it. And I'm hoping that you can report to me, Doris and Pausita, and all of you, that in the 2021 election, as I said, whatever the party, that there were more nurses who decided to run. I will also say that in politics, there is a very disproportionate number of nurses and teachers in terms of female politicians.
Teachers,
those two career paths have really produced a lot of extraordinary leaders. And when you look behind to the biography and ask what were they doing before they entered politics, there's definitely a disproportionate number of teachers and nurses amongst the women in politics. So that makes sense. I mean, it's obvious to me why that would be, I will say.
Well, but thinking that we have a prime minister that was a teacher, you would have thought, and that maybe is something for you to take to him. I mean it in a good way.
Yeah.
To say that he can use his own persona as a teacher to actually push teachers to do that. It would be good. It would be.
My grandma was a nurse and my mother was a teacher for 30 years in Toronto. So, I had the really good fortune of growing up, yes, with this extraordinary generation of Black female teachers. There was Zanena Conde. Those of you, again, I assume everyone on the call is from Ontario. The first Black female to be a minister in the NDP cabinet. There was Jean Augustine as well, who was an educator. And so, yes, I mean, in terms of particularly the Black community, Black nurses, Black teachers, when you see them in politics, they really were, for the women in particular, those were the two aspirational professions for sure. I think they still are to a large extent. So yes, it's the only good feelings for me about your community, I have to say. But what other questions do you have for me in the time that we have left?
I don't know if you can hear me. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
My computer, there's no picture. My name is my name's Brenda Stade, and I just started as a policy analyst at the RNAO and on Monday, and I'm a nurse practitioner in pediatrics, and I have Indigenous heritage. And you ran in where I live in October, I believe, in Toronto.
I can't hear you very well, unfortunately.
I know, I'm having problems with this mic. How can I say this? Let me turn this up.
Okay.
I quite admire your perspective. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Yes, and you ran in October, correct?
That's right. I ran in the by-election.
Yeah, which my young daughter, her first time voting, and we voted for you.
Oh,
And
thank
we
you.
were sorry you didn't win.
Yeah, me too.
But you will win the next time for sure. And I just wanted to say hello. And I don't know if you heard, I have Indigenous background, heritage. So although it's quite different from your heritage, there are some overlapping themes, and I quite admire what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. And Doris made that that point, and she's absolutely right. Certainly in terms of determinants of health, in terms of many social indicators, the Black diaspora and Indigenous peoples are really outliers. I mean, it's just whether you're looking at the healthcare system, the criminal justice system, employment, education, life expectancy, they're very much standalone. And then there are others. And so yes, you know, I have always tried ever since my days running for the leadership of the party. Whenever I am speaking about an issue related to the Black community, I always try to find a way to use that spotlight to speak about Indigenous peoples as well. I got some criticism for it. I've gotten some criticism for it at times, you know, particularly around George Floyd. When I was speaking about criminal justice, I spoke about it in the context of its impact on the Black diaspora in Canada, but also Indigenous peoples. And when people said, well, why are you, you know, this is, you know, why are you diluting the focus? I said, you cannot but speak about that. And because as bad as it is for Black people in Canada, and it is disproportionately bad, it is even worse for Indigenous peoples in Canada in terms of the criminal justice system, rates of incarceration, rates of arrest, solitary confinement, et cetera. And Indigenous women in particular, it's actually even worse. So for me, if I'm going to really truly, you know, as I said, do the work, be an ally, et cetera, I have got to do that. So when we spoke on National Indigenous Peoples Day, I did a joint statement with Rochelle Coy, who'd been one of our candidates out in Victoria, and also had she had worked as a deputy, I guess, a deputy head of the Assembly of First Nations, and then also on Emancipation Day, which I hope all of you know, it's the day that slavery was abolished in the territories that came to be known as Canada. And it was something that affected both of our communities. We were the two communities who could be held as chattel. We also did a joint statement. So that's very important to me. And in terms of policy in general, but certainly health policy, I always try to do that. It's very important. It's very important work for me.
And I just wanted to add one more thing, sorry, what happened to George Floyd, many of all of Indigenous people that I know that email me that they related to that so deeply, because I mean, it's, you know, different issues, sure, but they relate to that. I mean, we have missing women, I mean.
Yeah.
So
well, there's
really important.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're still waiting for the national action plan. That was one of the calls to justice coming out of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls report. And the very month, and this is again why it was so important to me to use the spotlight that I had, you know, when the assassination of George Floyd happened, and people were contacting me and the media was contacting me. I made the point that, you know, the subsequent month, so, you know, the month of June, the month directly afterward, there were at least 4 Indigenous peoples in Canada who were killed by the police. And they were all killed during wellness checks. Yeah. You know, so this is something, again, it's not a problem elsewhere. It's not restricted to our community. It's really important for me to say, here it is happening right here at home. And I will continue to do that. So, but thank you so much for voting for me, and make sure that you don't move before the next election.
No, we're staying here.
That's two votes
That's
down.
2 votes for you down. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see your time's winding down, Doris. Is there any last question for me? I will say to everyone very sincerely that
one last thing.
Okay, perfect.
We have action alert that I am going to send to Noah. I should have remembered his name is Noah because my grandson is Noah. I did by looking which one of my kids he has the same name. Okay, Noah, which is on vaccine justice, right? Because of the position of Biden versus our prime minister that is unclear yet, although I hear that we might not be so open to the issue of releasing the waiver for the patent. So it will be great if you can send to everybody in your, people that are in your circles for them to sign. It is really essential that we take care of the less well-to-do countries, both because it's essential for them. Their lives are not less worthy than ours. They're not less important than ours. And second is ignorance on public health not to do that. Yeah. Because if we don't take care of other people, I mean, we are going to have new variants that we will not know what to do with them. So for all of the right reasons, people need to sign that action alert, and we will send it to you today if you can give it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And yes, it's something that it attracted more press outside of the country when I reacted to that than it did here. It did attract some here, but I mean, our media release and my statements were picked up by the Swiss media in India, in the United States as well, in the UK as well, because yes, we were very swift on this, and for the reasons that you said, Doris, it's not right, and it doesn't make any sense. We are not going to be able to exit this pandemic on our own, even if we vaccinate every person. If we leave other countries unvaccinated, then we could be right back where we started. It is unconscionable to leave frontline workers, including healthcare workers in other countries, unprotected. If we look at the world instead of our country, but as a community, a global community, the standard should always have been, where do we vaccinate and who do we vaccinate first to do the most good? To protect the people most at risk and to limit global transmission. That should have been the standard. And that was for a moment the ideal. That was the idea behind COVAX. We pulled together all the vaccines for the entire world, and then we give them out where they're needed the most and where they're going to do the most good. And that hasn't happened. So absolutely, we need to make sure, first, we need to stop taking vaccines from COVAX. Yeah. And also from the National Serum Institute. I should also mention that, because that also produces doses for low-income countries. And then second, of course, we absolutely should be waiving vaccine patents so that we can boost global production. But boosting production takes time. What we do have is a massive surplus of supplies that countries like ours have hoarded, that we really need to plan to share.
Annamie, I will send you also, I wrote on the blog months ago about this. Imagine will remember I brought it to our staff meeting more than once. If I were the prime minister,
why not? Next job.
Thank you. No, I did. I already refused being the minister to two premiers. Thank you. They offered that already. That train is passed. No. For a variety of reasons that are not the reasons you want me to share now. So let's.
Okay.
Let's move on. But the issue is this: put yourself in the shoes of what's happening now. The shoes today, my premier here. saying the whole problem is the vaccine, the whole problem is this, the whole problem are the
travel.
The travel and the whole problem. Just picture the situation. If you were the premier, I can feel it. Not that I approve of it, but I can understand how then governments become like this. These are my vaccines, because if this one doesn't work and the other one doesn't work, and there is no vaccine that is sure until it's sure, then they all keep the vaccines and they draw the vaccines even more and more because they're afraid of the backlash. It's such a disaster the way we deal with that, right?
Well, it's why we need more nurses at the table so they can help bring reason to these situations. So anyways, thank you so much for the invitation, and please don't feel like this has to be the end of the road. If any of you want to know more about me or the party, our policies, or as I said, I'm definitely a resource even if it's just as a broker of an introduction. I'm very happy to do that. I asked the nurses today in our first session earlier today, what can we do to honor all that you have done during this time? And they said, through the three of them, they said, just listen more to us, to our advice, to our recommendations, to our experiences. Give us more space.
I am more ambitious than them, and I say, help us make sure that the national standards for long-term care with the hours and the skill mix happen.
Done. Done.
And we will
Thank
continue.
you.
And if you need people, except for Brenda, because Brenda is
we will. Yes.
Brenda, we cannot.
With pleasure. And yes, we do. We try to use offer our platform as often as possible. So these messages can again be communicated and disseminated to other policymakers. So we absolutely will take you up on that offer. So thank you very, very much, Doris. I have to go now, but
and I have to go too, because the Canadian press is calling me, and that must be
there we go.
as important.
I mean, okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye. And thanks so much for everything. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
How are you doing?